welcome back to Scandal Queens. It is me, EB, the de-influencer, is helping you deconstruct the narcissistic cult of Hollywood. And we are back together today, baby, in this holy union that we have joined in to finish up the story of the infamous, manipulative, coercive Lou Taylor. Now, last time there was a lot of context for us to get to where we are today at what is essentially going to be the Spears family and a bunch of other celebrities getting taken advantage of, right? We needed to understand where Lou Taylor kind of got her blueprint so we could understand how Lou Taylor got her conservatorship riz, as the kids might say. Today, it is all about Lou, specifically how Lou has built an environment that enables and empowers what happened to Britney Spears, what may still be happening to her for all we know, and what, honestly, going by Hollywood's track record, is probably still happening to artists and actors right now, this very second, that we don't even know. And it's easy to think, oh, Lou just talks people into bad contracts, but honestly, I think it's a lot more deep rooted than that. I think it's a lot more sinister, and it's a lot more tied into kind of the political and social states of what's going on than a lot of people want to admit. And that's what I think we're going to kind of break down today. Who Lou Taylor is, how she moves, who she moves with, and most importantly, how she was able to take control of Britney Spears and her family. Now, we are going to do a quick temperature check in just a second, but before we do that, I just want to say that the major source for today's episode is once again Melanie Carlson's excellent Substack series on Mystifying. I have that linked several times over on my Patreon, and I think it's also in some of the previous episodes. So please, by all means, go over there if you need to do a quick fact check or you can't find it on Google. It is an incredible, incredible series. I mean, like proper investigative journalism, which we never get anymore. It's got tons of great sources, complete footnotes, screenshots, videos, you name it. It is so much better than anything I can give you here. So please go and check out Melanie Carlson's Substack, Mystifying, if you want to really get into the weeds of all of this stuff, because I mean, it is so deep. I can't cover it all even in these two episodes. All right. So before we get into the meat of things, let's take a beat. Let's take a breath. Let's kind of shake things out, kind of prepare ourselves for what we're going to do with a quick temperature check before we get into the final chapter of Lou Taylor's insane story. Right off the top, Ariana Grande is back on tour and she's single. That's right. Lots of big news here for Ariana Grande over the last week or so. The singer has officially launched her new tour, the Eternal Sunshine Tour, which is going to celebrate her 7th album release, Eternal Sunshine. Surprise, surprise. Very creative. The singer is scheduled to perform 41 shows across North America and Europe with a 10-night residency at the O2 Arena in London. Now, you'll notice that I say the singer is scheduled. I do not say that the singer will perform because honestly, at this point, we don't know. Do we? We don't know, because the thought that's in the center of literally everyone's mind is that this tour is not going to finish. Because if you, you know what, just pause this and get on social media, whatever platform you fancy, and just type in Ariana Grande recent tour, and you'll see what we're talking about, right? People don't think Ariana's going to be able to finish the Eternal Sunshine Tour because she looks like Karen Carpenter did right before she died. Yeah. She looks absolutely skeletal. She looks incredibly low energy. Her voice sounds great. You'll never take that from her. She's God, what a talented. She's like an incredible singer. But the rest of it is shocking. It's shocking. I don't know who the hell is managing her, but this is like just, it's insane. Fans and non-fans, like everyone at this point is looking at her going, we already did Karen Carpenter. Why are we doing this again? She's skinnier than Paris Hilton was in the 2000s, when everybody was coked out, like all the super skinny coked out bimbos. I mean, it's crazy. It's very, very crazy. There's no muscle mass. The moves are stilted and limited. It's walk and pose, walk and pose, walk and pose. It's like, it's shocking and it's sad. We're getting now into Eugenia Cooney territory. And honestly, the only thing we can hope for is that someone around Ariana who genuinely cares what happens to her can try and empower her to get help. Now, on top of all that, the news is also broken that she and Ethan Slater have called it quits after 3 years. Yes, the SpongeBob to Wicked actor who left his wife and his newborn child to be with Ariana. The two of them have decided, hey, actually it's not working out anymore. So whoopsie. So, I hope for Ethan, buddy, if you're out there, I hope being a fad was worth it. That's really, I'm not sad for you. I'm sad for your ex-wife and your child. Next up, Lenny Hochstein has been accused of drugging and raping a woman. That's right. The ex-husband of Miami Real housewife Lisa Hochstein is being accused of a really nasty assault. Like, it's really bad. TMZ broke the story on Monday, June 8th, after a lawsuit was filed in Miami by an unnamed British model. In the lawsuit, the Jane Doe alleges that in May of 2025, Lenny Hochstein lured her to his Star Island home in Miami using a young male decoy, where he then drugged her and raped her after she repeatedly told him no. Her story is basically he hit on her. She was not interested. He sent a younger guy over to say, hey, we're going to go to this party on gated Star Island super late. Like after this club closes, you want to go? And she was like, a party with a hot guy like you? Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it. And she got there and it was just Lenny. According to Jane Doe, he gave her what she thought was a melatonin after she had repeatedly told him no. And then she blacked out and became unconscious. She later found out it was an Ambien. Jane Doe is suing Lenny Hochstein for sexual battery and infliction of emotional distress, but Lenny, of course, is denying the claims. Hochstein has fired back at the lawsuit, saying essentially that the woman's a gold digger. His response to me personally is very telling, because he sounds like an abuser. He absolutely sounds like an abuser. He basically says she's a gold digger. If she really had been assaulted, she would have called the police a year ago. She's just trying to get money. But here's what's very, very, very interesting about it. She's not suing him. This Jane Doe, this model, is not suing him for punitive damages. She's not just trying to get the money and run. Even though money is obviously going to be involved at some point, she's actually asking for a jury trial, which to me is says quite a lot. It says to me that she wants it all laid out there. She wants as many eyes on it as she can get. And that, to me, that's a level of confidence, which also could impart a level of truth. Now, it could be the opposite. I could be totally wrong, but it's a ballsy move, because she could just settle this under the table, right? If money was really the end goal, she clearly doesn't want that. It's going to expose her to this like immense ridicule via a jury trial, which will also hopefully expose him to the same level of ridicule. And it will kind of create a record that stands a lot longer and more significantly than a settlement. So I guess we'll see how this plays out and we'll see how this closes. But I can tell you it's not looking good for Lenny Hochstein, who, in my personal opinion, what is that quote? There's the Scottish comedian Frankie Boyle. What is it he says? He says, I'm not saying he's a rapist. I'm saying he has a rapist's face. That's how I feel about Lenny Hochstein. Not a fan. And last but not least, Jeffrey Epstein's assistant and sex scheduler is planning a book. Yes, yeah. In the most disgusting news this week, you heard that correctly, Sarah Kellen, who started working as the pedophile's assistant in 2001 and continued to do so for 15 years, is reportedly in talks to release a memoir. She's going to release a fun little memoir that'll just be right on the New York Times bestseller list. Isn't that so girl power, girl boss, good for her? I don't even know what to say here that's legal. If you've got kids in the room, earplug time. How the fuck does someone who assisted in, aided, and abetted a pedophile ring have the fucking gall to even consider writing a book about trafficking children, women, vulnerable men? Like, what fucking planet are we on? How that alone, this action alone should be enough to get a psychotherapist involved to go, you're a fucking psychopath and we're going to lock you up before you murder more people. Because for sure, if anybody knows where the bodies are buried, it is this woman. I'm telling you, I have read about this woman because I spent a lot of time going through data set 10. And data set 10 is particularly in the Epstein files. That's where the stuff about the girls is. And I found that because I just went into the Epstein files one day and I searched the girls. And do you know what I found? I found Sarah Kellen organizing men coming in and out of rooms like 8B and 11A. And she was doing the whole timetable. She was sending people in to replace broken beds. She was telling people, oh no, Epstein can't do that because that girl broke her teeth. She can't be there. So just move that other girl to this room. This girl's going to move out today. That girl left sooner than expected, so we're going to need someone else in blah, 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 blah. She was involved in all of that. She was involved in all of that. And it is unfathomable to me that a human trafficker is like, lolly, lolly, la, should I release a book? Are you kidding me, Sarah Kellen? Go fuck yourself. According to sources who spoke to TMZ, which is somehow now one of the most accurate freaking journalist outlets we have, which is crazy. The only reason Kellen has not already released the book is that she's scared that she'll lose any leverage she has to stay out of prison. This woman worked with Ghislaine, by the way, that I stick with the last podcast on calling her Ghislaine. She worked with Ghislaine as well as an assistant. It's just like, it baffles. It baffles the mind. The only reason she's not released it is not because she's like ashamed of what she did or scared or anything else. She just doesn't want to lose her fucking leverage. What a ghoul. Like, what an absolute ghoul. Essentially what she's saying is, I know I did wrong, and I'm only going to sell it to the highest bidder. I'm only going to deal with it in a way that benefits me the most. Like, just absolute fucking ghoul. But, you know, we live in the upside down now. So what's going to happen? Who knows? I'm sure Penguin or Simon Schuster will have it out on a grocery store bookshelf sometime next week. Have a nice big child sex abuse cover right in between all your masturbatory hockey player material. So look for that in a Walmart near you soon. Alrighty, righty. It is time. The final chapter in our story on Lou Taylor. Now, the last time we left off in the mid-90s, roughly, Lou had moved to Florida with her husband, Robert, at the start of the 90s. And soon after, she found herself working as a quote-unquote business manager for Davimos Advisors, which, if you want to be reminded all about the deep, dark nastiness of Davimos Advisors, especially the guy who started it, go back and listen to the last episode. Now, Davimos at this point, it was being run by John Davimos, who had managed very questionably the careers of superstar boxer Michael Moore, and he had also been involved with Bobby Brown, and he was involved with artists like Mary J. Blige as well, who were releasing releasing albums with Uptown Records. Now, when you look at the past for Lou Taylor, when you look at who she was working with and the industries she was working in, boxing specifically, as we covered in the last episode, it's not hard to see how Lou landed where she was. But how specifically did we go from managing a boxer in the 90s to having a central hand in the Britney Spears conservatorship? Well, it's quite the fascinating leap, okay? So Lou Taylor hopped on board the Davimos Advisors train around 1990, and her career just explodes, right? She was in the studio with Mary J. Blige as Mary cut her first record on the Uptown label in 92, presumably there as a representative of Davimos, who she was working with. And then in 1993, barely 3 years after stumbling into her business management role, Lou started her own business. This was the first iteration of her TriStar brand, TriStar Accounting Group, which still exists today, but it obviously expands into sports and entertainment, which comes later. Now, at this point, it doesn't seem like Lou Taylor was anything more than an arm of John Davimos, who you'll remember had taken over from his father and was managing the career, like we said, of Michael Moore, the super famous, seemingly unbeatable boxer. Davimos was making a lot of money on Moore, possibly up to 33% of his winnings, but that wasn't enough. Between 1991 and 1994, Moore ended up embroiled in a number of criminal incidents, including the breaking of a police officer's jaw, the lawsuit for domestic violence by his wife. These incidents took a toll, not just on Moore's reputation, but on the money he was earning, which obviously is going to affect his management team and what they're earning, right? So this was just probably one of the many reasons why in 1993, Davimos Advisors suddenly announces that they are going defunct. Now, Lou stepped up, and this is the same time that she kind of starts her own thing. She starts her own business. It's literally the same year. And she registers TriStar Accounting Group Incorporated in 1993. Now, Lou immediately inherits, also conveniently, Davimos's biggest clients, including Moore. That's how she ends up getting those winnings, is she takes on Moore. And she obviously is going to get an immediate boost to her personal and professional gravity, right? Because like I told you, Moore was kind of like a Mike Tyson of his time. So all of that is how in 1994, she ended up landing a huge portion of Moore's earnings on April 22nd when he defeated Evander Holyfield in one of the biggest heavyweight matches of all time. It's understandable with a reputation like that Lou started to climb the ranks of a sports business manager. Between 94 and 2000, Lou worked with other major athletes like Tony Fernandez, an MLB player and a 5-time All-Star, and Jesse Barfield, who was another star. He was like an outfielder, but he was quite good. He was quite quite popular if you're a baseball person. Now, that doesn't seem to have been enough for Lou, however, because she had her eye. She wants more. If there's anything about this woman, she is a black fucking hole. Enough is not enough is not enough. The world is not enough. That statement was made for Lou Taylor. She didn't want to wallow with suicidal boxers for a portion of the purse. Lou Taylor was nothing if not a woman who wanted it all, and she was going to get it at any cost. Things were relatively straightforward and quiet for Lou Taylor between Michael Moore's big win in 1994 and the year 2000. She's mentioned here and there, like occasionally in little interviews and things. She continues her dealings with the record industry, but there's no really big names that she's attached to. In general, no one knows who she or TriStar is at this point. Now, everything seems to shift in 2000. This is a big year for Lou Taylor and her family. Now, why is that? It's because right around this time, according to Robert Taylor, Lou's mother passed away. Robert says Lou cried every night and became desperate for the two to attend church. So they did. And shortly after, Robert was baptized and seemingly possessed by the Holy Spirit. If you go and read their Calvary Church, the Calvary Chapel Church website, Robert decided he was being called by God to start a church. No red flags there, huh? And so the two picked up sticks from Florida and headed back north. No, not to New York, to Brentwood, Tennessee, one of the wealthiest and most celebrity-packed enclaves in the whole of Tennessee, if not the whole of the Southeast. Now, where did this come from? It seems completely out of left field. This guy, if you go to that Calvary Chapel Church, calvarybrentwood.com, I think is what the address is. The way Robert tells the story on there, he never had an interest in God, never encountered him, did some Sunday school as a kid, but no one in his family was religious, no one cares. And then whoop, he just up an ante, suddenly just feels the Holy Spirit up inside him, right? That's kind of what it seems like. It seems a bit left field, and at first glance it is. Lou Taylor, who was thriving in the mafia-ridden crime world, much as Robert Kardashian was at the same time in the music industry, she just suddenly wanted to go to church, and she suddenly had this religious husband. Like, what's that all about? Just from the death of her mom? No, that's a very romantic story, but that's not exactly true, because even though Lou Taylor was engaged in some of the dodgiest business on the face of the planet, she also had ties to some of the biggest religious royalty in the United States, oddly enough. Those ties go all the way back to Stephen. I'm gonna butcher this name. It's the most difficult Armenian name I've encountered yet. Chivigian, specifically Stephen Chivigian, the grandson of, freaking get this, right? Mind blowing. Lou Taylor, BFFs with Stephen Chivigian. She's given his daughter internships at her company and all this kind of stuff. He is the grandson of Billy Graham, okay? And Stephen Chivigian, as recently as 2025, said that he sees the heart of God in the current state of American Christianity. I kid you not. That should speak for itself. Now, the Chivigian family, coincidentally, are also a part of that big old evangelical Christian Armenian family who obviously supported Billy Graham and ended up marrying into the Graham family. You'll be able to draw a line between them and Demos Shakarian and the Kardashians, which is, wow, crazy, right? So Lou had strong religious roots, as it turns out, and was now encouraging her husband, despite all his previous years of contentment, to pick up the mantle of Billy Graham himself, start your own church, become a leader of men. So, if that's still not a red flag to you, then maybe what I'm about to tell you next will be, because in 2000, Robert and his adoring wife, Lou Taylor, started Calvary Chapel Church in their new home of Brentwood, Tennessee. And I'm not sure how many of you by this point have hit pause and run over there to go and look at that Calvary Brentwood website and to look at this church and click around on the website and read through their beliefs. But it's pretty alarming stuff, because Calvary Chapel, by all appearances, in my personal opinion, belongs to the NAR, the New Apostolic
Apostolic Reformation, which I've been covering that. That's what I covered in episode 2, I believe it was, of the Kardashian deep dive series. And if you need a refresher on that, you can head over to Patreon for like I have the whole collection on this whole thing. But anyway, Calvary Chapel is one of those NAR churches that we've talked about. Again, this is in my personal opinion. And what I mean by that is it's one of those heavily right-wing, heavily political, the Bible is literal, speaking in tongues, laying of hands, all that stuff. Remember all the crazy shit we talked about with William Branham, all of that tent revival, brainwashing, hallelujah, pass the gravy. You can be a healer. You just have to tithe to my church, give me a bunch of money, and I'll tell you you're a healer. All of that kind of stuff. That is very, very similar to what they preach at Calvary Chapel Church, okay? But it gets worse, okay? It gets worse, which we'll get to in just a second. So if you go and you have a look at calvarybrentwood.com, if you Calvary Chapel Church, this is the church that Robert Taylor started in 2000, their beliefs are very clear. They take the Bible literally. It says that, I believe, multiple times on the website. Every page, every word, they take literally. Keep that in mind. A book that says you should stone whores to death and not eat pork, and that like spirits and all, they take it literally. They don't think it's symbolic. They think it's fucking literal. They are extremely anti-LGBTQ. I also want to say, we're going to go through this. This is not anti-Christian. By the way, I want you all to know that I know that I've been heated about that in the past, but this episode in no way anti-Christian. Lou Taylor's not a Christian. Okay. So 2, they are extremely anti-LGBTQ. They state that openly. We believe marriage is only between a man and a woman, and that's the only thing that's ever been made. And and they're cunty about it. Some of these churches try to dress that language up, but they straight up, there's like a whole paragraph in their beliefs where they're like, it's a man and a woman, get fucked if you think there's anything else. It doesn't literally say that, but that's the energy that you will get from it, which hold on to that because that will be very important later on in the Britney conservatorship story. So they also preach prosperity gospel, which is like if you go to that narconnections.wordpress.com website, that's one of the big warnings that author and researcher on that website tries to point out is like prosperity gospel is the antithesis of what Jesus taught. Like it's the absolute fucking opposite. And Lou Taylor's church, of course it preaches, of course it's prosperity gospel, right? The richer you are, the more of a beloved and favored Christian you are, and the poorer you are. Well, that's just because you're a sinner and you don't deserve to have a lot of money. There's a major focus on end times. They're a fucking death cult church. They have the literal belief that we're about to have Armageddon and they're going to be the ones who lead us into it. And Jesus is going to come back riding a pony with a flaming sword and create a theocracy that they get to live in. They're nuts, right? Right. And then all the Holy Spirit shit. They're very discreet about how they talk about the Holy Spirit stuff, but just go and have a dig around. Go to this calvarybrentwood.com, have a little perusal of their crazy ass, wacky ass beliefs, and then take yourself over to william-branham.org, have a little study around, and then wind yourself up on narconnections.wordpress.com. That's what you want to do. If you do all of that, you'll start to understand, but it's nonsense. It's manipulative, cult worshiping, building nonsense. Intentional misrepresentation of what Christianity is supposed to be. There's more, okay? But if we just look at those ideologies alone, we start to see the same kind of pattern repeating as we saw with Ava Hagopian and William Branham. It's the same kind of preaching you see and hear with Billy Graham. Surprise, surprise. She's BFFs with his grandson. And with Joel Osteen, which, hey, guess what? Joel Osteen is on the NAR Connections warning list. You're like, he's dangerous. Basically a big, large con. It's all a big, large con to get rich people to validate and justify the state of the world and their role in it while siphoning off money to fund some of the most heinous shit going on in the country and the world. Now, here's what's really interesting. It seems that Lou, shady, right? Shady, I succeed in the crime-ridden boxing industry, Lou Taylor, goes through a major shift during this time, the 2000s, when they're opening this church. And it's not the shift you would expect while also simultaneously the shift you would expect. Because at this point, we see a distinct shift in Lou's language, in the way she carries herself, and the way the image she presents, which is going to be vitally important when we get to the Spears family in a moment. Lou, who is very much still in the throes of expanding her celebrity management business, starts speaking about being a, and I quote, submissive wife to her pastor husband, but she specifically starts talking about her businesses within this twist of false Christian ideology. Take, for example, this interview response from Lou that she gave in an interview with Today's Christian Woman just a few years after she and her husband started their church in Nashville. She said to them, "I've always felt called to minister to people others don't normally get to. And I know a big part of that means hanging out with people who don't know God yet. I thrive in those situations. We can get on thin ice quickly when it comes to connecting with unbelievers. We have to be careful. It takes accountability and years of learning to sort through what's okay to do or say and what isn't." First of all, hold on to that quote. That is going to be another really important piece. You want to cling to that. But second of all, what a loon. I know. It's not unbelievers, it's non-believers, but the editors of the Christian magazine, obviously, the editors were not intelligent enough or grammatically aware enough. It doesn't matter. Lou's an idiot as well. It's all a mess. It's all a mess. It's all a mess. Now, specifically from that quote, that specific quote from Lou, I want you to hold that, right? Because that is important. That is very, very important. But it's also a huge, giant, red, horrible death warning alarm bell, okay? Because I know you're confused. You're like, okay, how does that little quote about working with the people that don't want to believe or don't believe, how is that? It's because of Seven Mountains territory, folks. It's Seven Mountains Mandate territory. And what is the Seven Mountains Mandate? Well, it's the scariest evangelical Christian movement you've heard of since the NAR. Okay, you probably haven't heard of them at all, but they're right there. Working hand in hand with the NAR ideology, the Seven Mountains Mandate, more commonly known as Dominionism theology, is all about Christians conquering what they consider to be the seven elements of society so that they can put the world under a Christian theocracy that they get to sit on the top of as kings and as queens. It's one of the branches of the Christian nationalism tree. That's basically the best way to look at it. Just like the NAR is a branch that's basically coming out of the same side of the tree. Essentially, what it boils down to is that dominionists believe that it is their Christian duty to take over the quote unquote seven cultural mountains of influence so that they can take control of society. It's the same beliefs that are preached by Chad Veach and Judah Smith, the ones who ministered to freaking Justin Bieber and the Kardashians and Chris Pratt and all of those absolute scumbags. And the seven mountains to who I think they're treasonous, right? They're basically trying to take over the government, trying to take over the world. They're treasoners. They're like treasonists. But the seven mountains are religion, family, education, government, media, arts and entertainment, and business. And they believe that by taking all of this over, they can essentially take over the world and force everyone to be a Christian. And if you don't basically bow down and do it, they're going to wipe you out. They want to make it illegal for you to not be Christian. Okay. And they want to bring back Jesus and wipe out everybody else or subjugate everybody else who is outside of it. They believe that it is literally their job, literally, to take over the world, to subjugate human beings. Every human being on this planet, they believe, should have to live the way that they tell them. Okay. You see what that is? You see that personality disorder. Yeah. And they just think that they have the right to do it because they're wealthy. That means that God chose them and that means they get to do whatever they want. And it puts a lot of the positioning of certain celebrities in a new light, right? Specifically the Kardashians, the Hiltons, Katy Perry, Chris Pratt, all of them, all the icky, gross, hypocritical celebrities who are paying into these churches, tithing to them and sitting in their pews and getting photographed coming out of them. And make no mistake, just like the NAR is funding and promoting Donald Trump and his party, the Seven Mountains Mandate people, dominionists like Lou Taylor and her husband, Robert Taylor, are certainly in the same position. Here's another kicker. That quote I read you at the top about Lou's job is to minister to those who aren't ministered to the non-believers. It's the exact same rhetoric that Katy Perry's parents use and have repeated about their celebrity daughter, their ties to her, and their 70 plus donations to Donald Trump's campaigns. It's literally almost like really like they're repeating the same line. How odd. How odd. Here's what's kind of important about all of that, okay? Lou's new Christian spin wasn't just sliding toward the sinister. It seemed to be directly influencing who she moved toward next and how she moved. Her big break outside of sports came with Nikki Taylor, who was a well-known model and television personality in the late 90s. After losing her job with this prominent cosmetics company, I can't remember who it was. It was like it wasn't Claire, was it? It was one of the big makeup companies, but she was like the face girl for the makeup company. She lost that contract while she was being managed by Lou. So she makes an announcement she's going to be leaving Lou Taylor. She's thinking about leaving Lou Taylor's TriStar Management to sign a contract with elite models. Now, that change would never come. Okay, because in 2001, Nikki Taylor was involved in a serious car accident that left her fighting for her life in an Atlanta hospital. No one knew if she would live or die, but you know, it made the first big break for Lou Taylor, appearing on camera for the local and national news, assuring them as Nikki's manager that she was doing her best to survive. Now, Nikki Taylor, no relation, is an interesting case study in the involving techniques of Lou Taylor. I'm going to go through it kind of quickly here, but if you want the full dive, again, go over to Melanie Carlson's Substack. She's got the whole thing laid out. It's really, really crazy. Nikki, as I said, was a model, which outside of Lou's primary experience, that was not what she normally did. After all, Lou had been managing athletes, not models. What does she know about gaining contracts and managing things in that corner of the industry? Well, it may not have been Lou Taylor's skill with business that brought Nikki into her orbit as much as it was the people around Nikki, because Nikki, you see, had been embroiled in several scandals before the year, like in the whole year, I think it was maybe year and a half before her accident. The really biggest part of those controversies had stemmed from her relationship with Miami nightclub owner of Liquid, Chris Pacquiello, Pacciello. I'm going to say Pacquiello for this episode, and you guys can just correct me. You know where to find me. And Chris Pacquiello, Christian Pacquiello, was a mafia associate, literally, and an FBI informant who got arrested in 1999 for participating in the robbery and murder of a woman. Now, Chris rubbed elbows with the biggest mobsters in New York. This is factual. You can go look him up. And he spent time with all the bigs, all the greats of the late 90s and the early 2000s. Like I said, he was getting pictured with like Paris Hilton and Lindsay Lohan and things. And he was also photographed with Diddy, with J-Lo, with Madonna, Sofia Vergara, you know? I think there was some of the stories I read. It kind of sounds like Sophia was dating him maybe for a little while, but Nikki was dating him in the year 2000. So Nikki was interviewed by the feds in 2000 in relation to Pacquiello and a huge delivery of cash that she had transported for him from Florida to New York. And while she wouldn't do any time for her involvement, Pacquiello would, as he would later plead guilty to charges relating to murder, racketeering, and robbery. Just 3 months before Nikki's life-altering car wreck, though, news broke again that she had been admitted to an inpatient drug rehab program. Nikki Taylor stayed there for 1 week, allegedly on her own, of her own volition, but you never know with these Hollywood things. Like if you've probably already, if you're one of my Patreon subscribers, you've heard the Brian Wilson episode, you know, it's who knows if it was actually voluntary or not, but she goes into rehab and Lou Taylor's out there in the papers once again, TriStar Management, we're helping her, blah, 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 blah. Nikki gets out of rehab after a month and she's back with Lou Taylor. Then on the morning of April 29th, 2001, Nikki was a passenger in a car in Atlanta when the driver wrapped the car around a telephone pole. Nikki was left in critical condition, and the media and the public, it was again one of those media storms. Model's been almost killed. What's she going to look like? Is she going to be Quasimodo? And most of all, they wanted to know if drug use was to blame. People didn't know if she was driving, if she was not driving. She had just been into rehab, so was she messed up again? Lou Taylor was right there on camera saying, no, she's not on drugs. She's on anxiety medication. And, you know, she's got a little careless with it. It's just the anxiety medication. She's going to be fine. I represent her. It's going to be fine. She just really takes command of the situation. So here's what's even crazier about all this. I think that this is where the pieces clicked together finally for Lou and made it easy for her to scoop up the Spears family later. Because remember, this is happening all around 2000 as her husband's starting a church. Nikki survived her injuries and covered enough, like she was recovered enough. She got better. She was kind of trying to play it off like she was perfectly recovered, but I think she was still dealing with quite, people end up in physical therapy for months. But she gets out of the hospital, and then she gives People magazine an exclusive interview about her life, the wreck, and everything that had come after. In that interview, it's made clear that Lou is still her manager. Lou's basically right there, and it's always mentioned in these years after the wreck. Lou Taylor manager, Lou Taylor, TriStar, Lou Taylor, TriStar. She specifically, what's interesting about this interview is that Nikki Taylor specifically starts pushing this really kind of almost, to me, it's almost performative. I know you're just an Iraq girl, but come on, almost like I'm a born again Christian. It's not like I found God, I found peace with God. No, it's like I'm a born again Christian. The magazine even mentions how she's now listening to Christian music while they're conducting the interview, right? It says, while Taylor's loved ones visit, her favorite CDs play in the background, Sting, Faith Hill, and for the recently born again patient, contemporary Christian music. It's eerily similar. If you're someone who knows much about the Britney conservatorship, I think I mentioned it in the last episode. It's eerily similar, that little part, eerily similar to some stuff that's going to happen to Britney later. So anyway, after the big interview, Nikki slowly starts making appearances in public again. In 2005, she pops up in her first big public appearance as a judge of that year's Miss America pageant. And judging with her is Phil Maloof, a member of the Maloof family who will later be tied into Britney Spears' conservatorship and her Las Vegas residencies. By 2007, Nikki had been offered her own documentary series, but the reality show was canned after Lou and Nikki decided it didn't show her favorably enough. Lou led Nikki in a lawsuit against E for what they claimed was this kind of like fraudulent misrepresentation of Nikki. They were like, you didn't show her perfume line, you didn't show her book, you didn't show her this, you didn't show her that. And I don't think the show ever aired. Nikki was gushing about Lou Taylor by this point. This is like early 2000s. We're past 2001, right? So we're probably a couple years later. She's gushing. She's absolutely gushing. And what she had to say about her manager, who's also, as you'll see in a second, is also operating, it sounds like, as like a religious counselor and best friend. Nikki basically starts revealing more than I think she realizes she did. This is what was written about Nikki and Lou in a 2007 interview. In addition to her family, Nikki's support system includes her manager at TriStar Sports and Entertainment Group, Lou Taylor, and assistant Robin Greenhill, she's a creep. She's basically just Robin. She's Nikki's shadow. I'm sorry, she's Lou's shadow. She's Lou Taylor's shadow. Robin Greenhill is Lou Taylor's shadow. Let's just start this again. In addition to her family, Nikki's support system includes her manager at TriStar Sports and Entertainment Group, Lou Taylor, and assistant Robin Greenhill, whom she considers close friends. They ride Harleys together and attend Calvary Chapel, where Rob Taylor, Lou's husband, is pastor. Before I met Lou, it was just me and my boyfriend or whoever I was with, Nikki says. Now I have great women in my life. That is... So basically the translation of that is Lou Taylor is my everything. She is a part of every aspect of my life now, right? Because she goes to Lou's church. She does her social stuff. She just said she goes and rides Harley. So that would be social time, right? And then obviously she works with her because Lou Taylor is her business and financial manager. So what part of Nikki's life does she control? Because it sounds like Lou Taylor is literally inserted herself into every social, religious, financial, business, personal. Like this is the sinister pattern developing. This is the complete takeover of the client's life. And I think it happens first by Lou making herself look like this great Christian to be aspired to. And then she lulls clients into a false sense of security, hits them when they're vulnerable, which makes them go, oh, she's Christian, so she's safe. She wouldn't lie. Like, this is all for the best. And then I think she slowly just swallows up everything around that person with a like, oh, let me handle this. We're best friends type of approach. And then before you know it, you wake up and you don't own anything. Lou Taylor's the only person with the passwords to your phone. You know what I mean? So like, it's very sinister, slow creeping, much like corporations who call their workers family. Now, Nikki Taylor wouldn't be the only name that Lou Taylor took over and used to her advantage during this time. Ron Artest, who was one of the biggest basketball players ever. He's got a whole new name now. I didn't write it down. He's gone through a lot. There's been a lot of back and forth. I'm not sure which name he's gone by now, but his name in the 2000s was Ron Artest. Ron Artest, right? He was huge. Major. I'm not a basketball person, right? But he was one of the biggest basketball players in the world by the early 2000s. But after a series of PR disasters, specifically an incident that was called the Malice at the Palace incident, which happened during the 2004 Pistons and Pacers game, a fan threw a drink and Ron Artest ran into the audience and the two got into a fight, and it was a big deal. Artest was in need of some serious crisis control when it came to his image and who wanted to work with him. Sometime after that Malice in the Palace event, Nikki Taylor's lawyer, so Nikki Taylor, the model that Lou is representing, Nikki Taylor's lawyer, Stephen Scrency, was sent to help Ron Artest with the ensuing civil suit and the misdemeanor assault and battery charges that had been put against him. By April of the next year, 2005, Lou Taylor was Ron's manager, and by his own testimony, for me, there's quotes from him about this, and it's pretty telling, right? It's pretty telling. There's this one article which came out in the edition of GQ at the time that she had just become his new manager, and he was moving to a new team, and this is what Ron Artest said. They wrote this, and he's got a quote in here. Ron spends several hours with his new management team at TriStar, a group that takes what they call a quote-unquote holistic approach to managing celebrities. That's for sure. Lou Taylor, the head of the company, a warm but fiercely efficient brunette, and Ron's new guru, will, in the course of the next few days, deal with his real estate investments, edit his new rap song, manage his child support payments, arrange to have his children ferried to Toys R Us, help him design t-shirts for his website, and on hands and knees in Indianapolis, clean out his refrigerator with Clorox. Then she will order him to hire a housekeeper. Like, what? What? She's handling his child support payments, his real estate investment. She's going to edit the rap song that he's putting out. She's going to arrange to have his children taken to Toys R Us. She's going to arrange for them to be cared for. And she's there's a lot, even like her going, oh, I'll clean your refrigerator on hands and knees. That to me feels like a guilt inducement. Like at some point later, she's going to be able to say to them, I've been on my hands and knees scrubbing your refrigerator. Who else has done that? Like a narcissistic mother, man, like a narcissistic mother. That whole thing from GQ, I think, speaks for itself. Take over the celebrity's life, sell it to them as convenience, but make them reliant on you in every single way possible. Infantilize the celebrities and everyone around them if you have to, and take power over everything so that you are all that they see, do, hear, feel, know. There's no question about it. Now, Lou went on to arrange a relationship between Artest and the Maloofs. Yes, those Maloofs, Adrian Maloof, the billionaire family who owned the Las Vegas Palms and the Sacramento Kings. Ron Artest is actually in an episode of The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills when they go up there to watch the Sacramento Kings. Ron Artest described his time with the Maloof family team, right? The Kings, the Sacramento Kings, who are, I think they were at the time, much the same way he had described Lou Taylor's management style. He said, I never knew my owners before like I know them, says Artest, who, like point guard Mike Bibby and other Sacramento players, routinely calls the Maloof brothers to chat. Without them, I wouldn't have this chance I have now. They've taken a lot of weight off of my shoulders, not just basketball-wise, but in every aspect of my daily life. I've got a little more room here to correct my mistakes and breathe a little bit too. Oh my God. This eventually escalated because people are like, whoa, they're taking over your daily life. And then this Lou woman is also taking over your daily life. Like, what part of your life do you control, brother? And like I said, he's had a lot of problems. He's changed his name, all of these kinds of things. But that to me smacks of like a high control environment, right? That quote was given by Ron Artest in 2007, the same year that Britney's infamous Give Me More happened as well. And guess where that happened? At the Maloof's Vegas Palms Hotel. And that's where a lot of reality TV has been filmed. The Kardashians have filmed at the Maloof's Hotel. Jamie is going to be involved at the Maloof's Hotel. There was one of like the Road Rules or one of those, The Real World, I think, was filmed there. There's lots of reality television that's been involved in this Maloof property, interestingly. And Britney is no exception to that, including that, again, that just heartbreaking 2007 performance. Now, all of that has gotten us here to the moment you've all been waiting for. How the heck does Britney Spears fit into all this? How the heck did Lou Taylor get her hands on Britney Spears? And how did she keep her involvement quiet for so long inside of it all? Well, everything we've talked about to this point is what's led us here. You've seen how Lou's pattern has escalated, how she sharpened and honed her message with a Christian point that would be admired by David Koresh and Jim Jones and William Branham. Lou has become a master manipulator now, able to tackle the biggest athletes and models in the world. Now, she has the confidence to strike it big and go for the mega celebrity that she's wanted all along. She's finally got a fish for that big fish, and she gets her in. Not with Britney Spears herself. No. Britney thought she was a stalker. She got her in with Jamie Spears instead. When it comes to a perfect mark, it's hard to think of someone more primed and prone than Jamie Spears. A drunk, a drug addict, and an arguable sociopath, he became the perfect target for Lou Taylor in 2004 when he moved out to the sunny shores of California after a divorce and an embarrassing stint in rehab for all of that substance abuse. Now, if you haven't already noticed, the biggest part of Lou Taylor's pattern, how she really seems to get people stuck in, is by getting them in their lowest and most vulnerable places. That's why I said I feel like she's a Christian manipulator, because when do the Christians always come calling? When someone died, they're not there fucking celebrating you when you get a promotion, but they'll show up if your mama dies. Think about it. She got her hands on Michael Moore, the boxer, when he was being sued every which way, and the people that had been managing him are going under. Then she got her hands on Ron Artest when he was spiraling with charges and lawsuits against him. And then the same for Nikki Taylor. The model was about to walk out of the door on TriStar. She had said that in interviews. And then all of a sudden, she's almost loses her life. And then in comes Lou Taylor, whose husband has a church, and she's got this huge dose of Christianity. And suddenly Nikki is a self-proclaimed born-again Christian who's a member of Robert Taylor's church. Well, in 2004, I think it was Jamie Spears's turn, James P. Spears's turn, to experience that sharpened point. So after he gets out of rehab, Jamie moves out to California, where he moved in with his daughter, Brittany. She's like, I'm going to get you out here. We're going to be family. She's with Kevin Federline. She's starting to plan a family. You know, she's going to take care of daddy, as it were. And it seemed like it was going to be the same old, like, okay, he's been embarrassed now. His wife's left him. He's gone through rehab. He's going to get back on his feet and everything's going to be fine. But it wasn't. Just a month or so after getting out of rehab and moving to California, Jamie Spears was in meetings with Larry Rudolph, who is one of Britney's managers, and he either is managing Taylor Swift or he's about to manage Taylor Swift at this time. I believe he already is, because I think they get rid of him by like 2005 or something. So he would have been kind of probably messing around with Scott Swift by this point. But Jamie is hanging out with Larry Rudolph and George Maloof. Okay, yes, Maloof again. It's a strange crowd to be in. So Maloof, of course, he comes from that same Maloof family that had close working and personal relationships with Lou Taylor at this point. We don't have time to go into them. Go to Melanie Carlson's Substack if you want to know more about the Maloofs. But it kind of makes one question. Did Lou Taylor introduce Jamie to George Maloof, or was it the opposite way around? I tend to think that Lou Taylor, which you'll see why in a second, I think that Lou Taylor is the one who introduced Jamie to George Maloof, but you know, it's possible. It's possible. Lou's relationship with the Maloof family would be powerfully demonstrated a short time later when Lou Taylor managed to maneuver a contract between them and our test. But it's also possible that something even dodgier happened, okay? Because in later movements to form Britney's conservatorship in 2008, Lou Taylor would send an email, hand to God. This is on Melanie Carlson's Substack. You can go and look at the screenshot of this email. It blew my fucking mind. But Lou Taylor in 2008 sends an email to the people who are involved of setting up the conservatorship and essentially says, like, you should make me head of this. I should be in control of the trust. And in this email that Lou would send in 2008, she states, quite frankly, that she and Jamie have been praying and fasting together for 3 years. Right? We have Ron Artest, who's calling her a guru. Okay. She's acting as a guru to him. And now we've got Lou Taylor saying I was praying and fasting with Jamie for 3 years before the conservatorship happened. So that would be right around this time. That would mean that Lou and Jamie started some kind of spiritual counseling relationship together in late 2004 or early 2005. And that's around the same time that Jamie was getting out of rehab and moving to California with Britney. It's a perfect end if you're a predatory Christian. Jamie Spears at that point was dealing with the public fallout of his addiction issues and his divorce to Lynn. And he was also, Lynn at this time was being staged as this golden parent because this is before Jamie Lynn's pregnancy. This is before Britney has shaved her head. So Lynn's kind of like this perfect golden parent in a lot of ways. They kind of criticize her for taking money, but Jamie is considered to be this like drug addicted scumbag, right? So if ever there was a vulnerable place to attack a man like James Spears and to dump some manipulative cult leader bullshit on him, this is the kind of environment to do it in. And I personally believe that that's what Lou did because, you know, I mean, it doesn't matter because whatever she did, it worked. In January of 2005, Jamie Spears changed the address of his company. I think it was the Spears Group is what he changed it to. He changes the address to Lou Taylor's TriStar Sports Entertainment Group in Nashville, Tennessee. That's in 2005. It's an odd move, but it's one that will become more and more familiar as we look at the Spears family. The next year, 2006, Jamie made headlines not for his daughter, but for himself when it was announced that he had, quote unquote, designed this poker software for, I don't really understand. I can't tell if it's for use in the hotel or in the home. I spent about 30 seconds trying to understand it, and it just sounded like a bunch of bullshit to me, but it's basically some kind of poker software for casinos and for like tournament type poker. Jamie launched this new software in 2006 with George Maloof. It's the Maloofs again, their Palms Hotel, who he was also apparently working for as a cook, which doesn't make sense. But it even George, what's his name, Nassif, you know, who was married to Adrienne Maloof, he makes a comment apparently in an episode of Botched where he says, like, yeah, Jamie Spears used to cook for me. It's crazy, absolutely nuts. So Jamie launches this software with the Maloofs in 2006, and it looks like he's going to be the next big thing, but that's not what happens, because in that same year, Britney's life starts to go off the rails. Her second son, Jaden James, is born in September of 2006, and by October of that year, it's announced that Britney has filed for divorce from Kevin Federline. The next thing anyone knew, Britney was on the constant party circuit, and that meant being constantly in the tabloids, tits out, vagina out, face, you know, messed up, stumbling, shoeless, out of clubs, off her face, like clearly with Paris Hilton and Lindsay Lohan. The public and the media were like, everybody went wild with it. It was nuts. I talked about it. My mother talked, everybody was talking about it. It was not anywhere. Like it was literally everywhere. And it was all negative. It was all horrible. It was basically like, ooh, look at Britney. How disgusting is she? And she wasn't going to be the only one getting the heat pretty soon. Now, we're going to get back to Britney in just a second, but first we're going to have to take a little detour to some other Spears family members, specifically Jamie Lynn and Lynn Spears, who had big years with Lou Taylor when it came to 2007. So while Britney was definitely kicking the media hornet's nest with her shocking behavior, Lou Taylor was making moves on the other Spears family members. In December of 2007, when it was announced that Jamie Lynn Spears, Britney's 15-year-old TV star sister, was pregnant, all eyes turned to the underage Nickelodeon star. Every magazine in the country, for once, had Britney's little sister on the cover instead of her. Tabloids couldn't get enough. The Spears parents were smeared as failures, which they are, and questions were immediately asked. Behind the scenes, Lou was spinning her web, Jesus in the center of it all. According to Jamie Lynn in her later memoirs, her parents were devastated by the pregnancy, as you would be. Of course, you're going to be devastated when your 15-year-old ends up pregnant. Both Jamie and Lynn wanted their daughter to abort the pregnant. God, I hate that they named that kid Jamie Lynn and their names are Jamie and Lynn. That is so white trash. Okay, right. Anyway, sorry. I'm sorry. I hate Britney Spears' parents so much. This is not a judgment on anyone else, just on them. I hate them. I hate them so much. Anyway, both Jamie and Lynn wanted Jamie Lynn to abort the pregnancy so that she could protect her career and her future. I'm sure they also want to protect that Nickelodeon check they had. According to Jamie Lynn, Lou Taylor is the one who basically like kicked the door in and insisted that the 15-year-old keeps the pregnancy. You got to do it. My husband's a pastor. We don't believe in abortion. You know, you can just see it. Jamie Lynn described it. It's horrifying. When I read it, I went, what a manipulative fucking when I read it, because basically if you go and read Jamie Lynn's memoir, I've just read chunks of it. She describes Lou as quote unquote taking her under her wing, swooping in and insisting that no, she doesn't have to get rid of the baby. You must keep the baby, and talked her into keeping the fucking baby at 15 years old, a child. It's weird stuff. I recommend you go and look it up. She basically describes Lou as taking over like business. She creates a business. It gets registered to the TriStar address. She's obviously taking over the personal life, right? Because she's handling the pregnancy and stuff. And then all the while, under this shroud of Christian charity, this Christian keep your baby, even though you're a baby, it's your duty to God. The pregnancy gets announced, and guess how they announce it? Guess what they do with it? Because they're Christians. They're super, super Christian. This is what Jesus would have wanted. Jamie Lynn has a $1 million exclusive with OK Magazine. OK Magazine pays them $1 million to sit a pregnant, scared teenager on the front of its magazine with this title that was like, I'm so scared. I've never been so scared. And she's got Jamie Lynn's got this horrified look. It's disgusting. It's disgusting. Lou Taylor, I'm sure, got her cut of that $1 million exclusive with OK Magazine because, again, she was running Jamie's new business, and it was under the TriStar address. But there was a little bit of a hitch in the plan. While Britney had been out getting snapped by the paparazzi, and while Jamie Lynn had been flaunting her spreading tummy on the cover of OK Magazine, mommy Lynn Spears had been quietly getting her book together for a major deal. Yeah, that's right. Between Jamie crashing out of rehab and Jamie Lynn getting pregnant, somewhere between there, Lynn Spears had registered her own business with a TriStar address and had gotten herself a book deal with a major Christian publisher. Yep, Lou handling it all. And she was going to publish a book about being a God-centered mother and a leading Christ-filled family. Like, yeah, Lynn Spears, I kid you not. She was going to write a book for a fucking Christian company. I kid you not. I mean, that seems to be like, that is now peddling, trafficking your children seems to be a part of the Christian doctrine now because they accept so many people that do it. So that must mean that they endorse it. I mean, I don't know personally, but that's what it's looking like from here. If this is a Christian, then, you know, but here's the next hitch. After it was announced that teen Jamie Lynn was pregnant, Lynn's book gets canceled by the Christian publisher, who's like, yeah, sorry, you've got a pregnant 15-year-old. You cannot publish in the Christian thing. So maybe I stand corrected. It's just changed now because now Lynn is obviously considered a Christian, and look what she's done to her children. Anyways, again, I digress. We can argue this all day. Lynn's book gets canceled, and she was no doubt devastated, but the millions her teenage daughter was raking in from her pregnancy interviews for the tabloids was no doubt somewhat of a consolation prize. Now, while the circus around Jamie Lynn Spears was pretty bad in 2007, it was nothing to the scrutiny that Britney Spears faced, honestly, because 2007 was the year. In February of 2007, Britney was admitted to inpatient treatment at a rehab facility in Antigua, but after 24 hours, she checked herself out and disappeared, only to reappear another 24 hours later in Tarzana, California, where she was photographed shaving off all her hair. Again, go back and listen to the Britney Spears Conservator episode if you want to get more into all of that kind of stuff. If you need all of that, the paparazzi and the umbrella and the craziness, if you need that, then you go and get that. Now, Lou Taylor didn't get her hands on Britney, not quite yet. Not quite in 2007, because that was tricky. Britney already had a trust to protect her assets, unlike her not as famous little sister or her mostly unknown parents, who basically started their first, like, not the dad. He had, they said construction business, but you look online, it said he owned a aviation company that he started in 79, which starting to wonder about him a little bit. But it's essentially, it's much easier for Lou Taylor to get her hands on Britney's family rather than Britney, who already has all these people around her. Lou was around, though, because in 2007, when Britney's going through all this horrible stuff, there's an email where she says, "Who is this Lou Taylor woman? She's like a stalker." She basically calls Lou Taylor a stalker. Now, Lou, we'll just stop and take a checklist there. When it comes to the Spears family, there are 5 people, 2 parents and 3 kids. And at this point in 2007, when Britney's shaving her head and Lynn's announcing her pregnancy, 3 of the 5 Spears immediate family members are basically being managed and directed personally and financially and business-wise by Lou Taylor. And at least 2 of them, Jamie Lynn and her father, Jamie, are being spiritually led by this woman, which is a pretty scary fucking thought. So then we're in 2008, and this is where it all falls apart for Britney. In January of that year, she ends up on a psychiatric hold. There's another at the end of the month, and by February 1st, Britney is placed under conservatorship by the court. And Lou Taylor's writing emails during this time. That's that email that I referred to earlier, asking where she was like, "I want to be the head of the trust because I've been a spiritual guru and I've been praying, so that qualifies me." She's ultimately unsuccessful. She doesn't get that at first, and she does get put in charge of managing Britney's business deals because Jamie gets put in charge, right? In February, Jamie Spears is given control over everything, which is why he's been in and out of rehab. Why he's had like endless business failures. Why is that the person who's anyway, it's a whole, we could do a whole nother episode on that. But essentially, she kind of gets her hands on it through Jamie because Jamie puts her over Britney's business affairs. Now, again, I'm not going to go into it, or you can go back and listen, but every part of Britney's life was controlled. Everything, what she wore, what she did, who she spoke to, everything. But there are a few things that I want you to think about within the larger context of this. Okay. If you need more details about Britney, go over to Patreon. There's some significant things that we need to address about the years and years and years of Britney's conservatorship. There's just too much to go into, but there's some specific things you need to remember. Number 1, Britney was heavily drugged during this time from 2008 to at least 2014, if not 2021, I think, basically, when she got out of it. She was heavily drugged. Per her own description, per her own acknowledgement to the court, she was put on lithium for years against her will, with doses being changed to keep her submissive or compliant or whatever they needed to do. This is, of course, exactly what Eugene Landy did to Brian Wilson. Patreon subscribers, you heard the bonus episode. That's what he did to Brian Wilson. He kept him drugged in a stupor unless he needed him to work, and then he would give him uppers. Very, 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 very similar thing. Next thing. Britney was forced to work through fear and coercion. When she was ready to stop working, which was basically once she had her kids, she was kind of done. She was not really interested. And basically from 2008, from the time that they put her in that conservatorship, she was world tour, Vegas, 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 and like albums every other year. It was yearly at one point. Just really crazy, crazy work. And they were getting her to do this work through fear and coercion. They just slung her around everywhere. And they told her at one point, "You're going to be in contempt of court because you agreed to this conservatorship. So if you don't do what you're told, you're in contempt of court." Or the real kicker that was probably the one that really got her was they basically said they were going to take visitation rights to her kids away if she didn't behave and do what she was told. So again, awful. And Lou Taylor was a part of this. Now, number 3 here, the third kind of thing, Britney was not allowed to socialize with anybody she wanted to. It was only people approved by basically Lou Taylor and Jamie Spears. There was virtually no one that was chosen by Britney. They were all people who worked for Lou or worked for Jamie, especially that Robin Greenhill gal, who is like Lou Taylor's second in command in her shadow and followed her from, it is a cult, man. I swear to God, it sounds like It's a cult. It's a cult. It's a cult. Number 4, Britney's room was bugged and her phone was surveilled so that she had absolutely no privacy. Britney was never, ever, 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 ever alone with herself. She was always being spied on. She was also always being listened to. They had a mirror of her iCloud, so they could just constantly keep track of every single thing going on her phone. And then they would punish her if they found any misbehavior. Britney was only allowed to read or listen to Christian music, is also what I found digging around in here. They would only let her have the Christian books, Christian music, even though she likes to read a bunch of different things. And Britney was never allowed to be out on her own, nor was she allowed to come and go as she wanted. She was held on a strict exercise regime, again, just like Brian Wilson and Eugene Landy, and a tight medication schedule. And again, never, ever alone, always being monitored through and handheld through all of that stuff. Now, why is this significant? Well, because there is a pattern, clear as day to me, that's going on display here. Now, this theory that I'm about to give you was first pointed out by Melanie Carlson, and I think it is the most important part of that whole Substack deep dive. And it's one of the reasons I've been going on and on and on about everything. Like, why I had to lead you through the Kardashians to get to this point to see how this is so connected, and this is all part of the thing. If you look at the whole of Lou Taylor, the religious ties, the past clients, the behavior with Britney Spears, it paints a picture, not unlike that of certain individuals. Individuals like, I don't know, Keith Raniere from the Nexium cult or David Miscavige from Scientology, right? And here, I'll lay it out. This is Melanie Carlson's theory. I agree with it. I think she's 100% on the ball. I mean, here it is. Lou Taylor's a cult leader. She's running her business like a pseudo-Christian cult leader. She's a cult leader. Okay? And I think you can tell if you look at what's called the bite mind control method. Okay. And this was developed by Dr. Steve Hassan, who's so good. He is on TikTok. If you're on TikTok, please go follow Dr. Steve Hassan. So good. So he has what's called the BITE method, BITE. And this is how authoritarian and cult leaders coerce people, get them brainwashed, as it were, mind controlled. There's not really brainwashing, mind controlled, coerced, guilted, stuck into these high control environments. So number 1, the B is behavioral control. Control what the person does, who they're around, what's around them. Strict rules that control all their finances, their professional life, their personal life, their medical decisions. Control absolutely everything. Make them ask permission every time they want to do anything. They want to make a decision on anything, even down to what they wear. Make them reliant. Use reward, use punishment for compliance, or fear if you need to do it, right? Behavioral control, controlling their behavior. The second one, I, information control, controlling access to data, to people, to anyone with any conflicting viewpoints. Make sure there's no one around who can say, are you sure about that? That sounds pretty fucked up, right? You make a bubble. That's information control. Thought control, limit the capacity for independent thinking and critical evaluation. Ban questions of doubt. Make the central doctrine the only truth allowed. Only feed them information that will confirm the mind-controlling information biases that you're giving them, right? Like Britney Spears being given only Christian books to read. That's the T, thought control. Emotional control. Control how members are allowed to feel and process experiences. Instill fear of the outside world. Instill a sense of self-blame, guilt, and shame. Create extreme dependency. Britney's definitely got the dependency. She definitely has the dependency. And you can absolutely tell, well, we know this for a fact because she would say, I was down, I was depressed, I didn't want to work, I didn't want to do it. And it was basically like, put on your fucking smile and get the fuck on stage. That's a part of emotional control. And the drugging is a part of the emotional control as well. Just as we did with Brian Wilson, who you can hear about again in that bonus episode, Britney was basically turned into a giant childlike vegetable, right? Britney was subjugated in so much of this. She ceased being a person, and she was basically just like a circus elephant. You know, they did horrible. It's just horrible. And to a degree, knowing that Lou has done this as well with Nicki, with Artest, with Britney, to what degree did she do it with Britney's family? You know, we've seen what she did to Britney. To what degree has she done this to Britney's family? Has she fed Jamie Spears drugs? I don't know. I have no idea. I have absolutely no idea. Lou has said herself, though, that her management style is complete control. I'm not kidding. Listen to this. This is a quote from Lou Taylor. We are an extension of every single person that touches their life. She's talking about her celebrity clients. Lou doesn't just manage bank accounts and mortgage payments for these celebrities. She controls their life. And the point? Make her powerful, make her successful, and funnel that power and money back into that fucking Seven Mountains mandate that she follows in her Christian narcissism. Because that's what she is. That's what she does. She's a narcissist. Anyone who follows this prosperity gospel, fake Christian shit is a narcissist. And within that, just an FYI, Lou Taylor made $18 million, right? Her TriStar group was paid $18 million during the Britney conservatorship. There's at least 40,000 of that. I believe the number is 40,000. It might be higher than that. It might be higher than that. At least 40,000 of that from Britney's Las Vegas shows was donated to anti-LGBTQ charities. Because remember, it says it on her website. They don't believe that LGBTQ people exist. They think that there's a man and a woman and that you are meant to get married, to breed children, to make more Christians, and anything outside of that, they don't think you should exist, right? So that's what Lou Taylor is doing with the money she made off Britney Spears and the money she's making off of anyone else. And that's just that donation that was able to be tracked down. God knows what Lou does with her personal money, especially considering the fact that she's got a church that doesn't believe in anything outside of man and woman should be breeding. So if we put all of that together, what does all, like, I've thrown so much information at you today. What does it mean? Well, here comes the soapbox. It means that Lou Taylor is a part of a dangerous Hollywood cycle, a cycle that scoops people up and turns them into objects that can be further objectified by people for money. Period. End of. And the irony of it all is that Lou, within this, she calls herself a Christian. All of that I just described to you, she thinks that's Jesus. She thinks donating $40,000 of a pop star's sexy Las Vegas show money to Jesus, not even to Jesus, to anti-LGBTQ charities, to people who want to cause harm and pain. Lou Taylor thinks that's Christian. She thinks it's Christian. She's obviously literally never read the fucking Bible. Lou Taylor, if you're listening to this, you've never read the fucking Bible, you fucking clown. You must be illiterate. A follower. She calls herself a follower of the man who castigated the tax collectors, who destroyed the temple. If her story, if we assume, as her church website says, she believes that the Bible is literal, okay, then she claims that she's the follower of the man who castigated tax collectors, who destroyed the temple, a man who said it was easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than it is for a wealthy person to enter the kingdom of heaven. So how the hell can you call yourself a Christian and put on your church website that you preach prosperity gospel? Lou Taylor is the antithesis of a Christian. She's not a Christian. She's a hypocrite. She is a hypocrite writ large. She is a literal, actual Pharisee. She is the Pharisee that Jesus warned people to avoid at all costs. She is a fucking clown. She worships false prophets, money and power, namely. There's nothing behind it but the insatiable black hole of an ego that all extremist, evangelical Christian narcissists have. They're essentially the hungry ghost from Spirited Away, literal black holes that consume with nothing inside. Sure, they'll spit out some gold, but they're empty. Yeah, Lou Taylor can make some money, but she can't manage empathy. Yeah, not rich enough for that, apparently. And she targets weak people on purpose in their most vulnerable moments. Remember when I read that quote to you at the beginning from Lou Taylor and how she was saying that she knew her purpose, right? Was to like work with the people who hadn't been preached to, the people who don't have God yet. No, 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 no. Like this whole, like, I'm so noble. I'm like Jesus. I'm going to the people who haven't been ministered to. Aren't I so special? She doesn't do that because she's a good person. Lou Taylor targets people who don't know the Bible and don't know God because they don't know enough of the actual Bible, of the actual Christian religion to defend themselves. That's why she targets people who have never been exposed to Christianity or to God or to religion, because they don't have a reference point to defend themselves with. They just go, oh, I guess that's what it says. And that's it. That's it, right? It goes back to the Reformation and the Protestants being like, hey, the Bible needs to be in English because people need to know what they're saying. She would be the Catholic Church in this incident, like really manipulative, like let's just get people who don't know what this is about. And let's just get them to pay us money and show up and keep their mouths shut. That is Lou Taylor. That's why she wants to get people who haven't been converted yet, because they don't know. They don't know. She traps suckers because she's a predator. And that's all she is. That's all she'll ever be. She's like this chameleon predator. I don't know. Is there like an evil octopus? Because that's kind of what she is. She's like an evil octopus that can change colors and squeeze itself through little holes. She's like an evil Christian narcissist octopus. And you know what? Narcissism is not curable, by the way. Narcissism is not curable. This is all my personal opinion, of course, but narcissism is not curable. That part is not my opinion. That is fact. NPD is not curable. You don't ever get rid of it. You can learn to manage it. But I don't think Lou Taylor is too worried about her incurable narcissism because she doesn't seem to be worried about being an evil bitch. So, she's willing to subjugate human beings for personal gain. Sorry, I don't think that person is going to be worried about seeking help in the first place, because it's a very specific kind of person who would be that willing to manipulate and harm others, right? Like David fucking Koresh. So Lou, if you or your scumbag husband with your scumbag church are listening to this, it's not pearly gates you have waiting for you. If your vision of hell and heaven exists as you try to force on your website, you're going straight to hell, honey. Straight to it. A one-way ticket. And let me tell you this as someone who actually grew up in Tennessee. Okay, you got a one-way ticket. Front seat of the bus to hell, and there ain't going to be nothing there waiting for you but the same pain and subjugation that you have caused to others. So rest in piss, slavers. And that's going to be it. That is it. That is going to be the close of my Lou Taylor episode. I know we didn't get into every single nitty gritty detail. I know you wanted to hear about how she stole $600,000 from Britney Spears and gave it to the Kardashians, but I only speak on things that I can find a paper trail for. And the $600,000 from the Kardashian, while I 100% believe every rumor about her could possibly be true, I feel like she is completely fucking capable of all the heinous things she's been charged with. I cannot find a concrete 100% paper trail that would convince me that enough to get on here and say she 100% did it. I'm not saying she didn't do it. I'm just saying I can't find proof of it. So whoever does find that proof, who finds that paper trail of the Kardashians siphoning off money from Britney Spears, and you can put it on camera, 100% verifiable document that other people can go and pull up, you will blow up and you'll be way more famous than, I don't know, who's someone who does this kind of stuff. I don't know who does this. I don't have that many followers, but you'll be huge if you can find that paper trail. I would love to see it if you can find that paper trail, because I cannot. But that is our Lou Taylor episode. I think that's enough. I think that's enough. I think that's enough context. I think you can see where the patterns come from. I think you can see the kind of people that she's worked with. You can see her character. You can see her personality. You can see her MO. You can see what she is. And that's what's important, because if you can see what she is, you can see other people like her. Because Lou Taylor doesn't just exist in Hollywood. Okay, this is what Hollywood is. It's this disgusting quagmire of, it's essentially trafficking. The whole of Hollywood is just like trafficking drugs, trafficking people, trafficking children. Like it's just unfathomable. It's unfathomable in one way or another. It's just trafficking people. So it's, if you can see this, You can see it happening to other people. You can stop paying attention to it, which, as I always say, your attention is money. And we can just find a better way, focus on better people, stop giving these people money. I mean, as far as I know, the Kardashians still work with Lou Taylor. There's a ton. Just go and Google who is working with Lou Taylor, because I think Kim is a princess and one of Chris's businesses still work with her, even though people have been telling them for years, stop working with the woman who exploited another woman, right? But we know the Kardashians don't care about that because they exploited people using Ava Hagopian and William Branham, right? With all that fake healing stuff that they were getting like 40 grand a night from they would have been getting 40 grand a night from some of those fake healing revival things that they were doing. So shouldn't be surprised, but it's heinous. The rest of us, though, we can starve out people like Lou Taylor by taking our attention away, giving it to better people. Like, let's go spend some time this weekend digging on the internet to find someone who's not represented by a talent agency or a record label. And let's find someone cool. Let's go and find a new artist to connect with. Singer, songwriter, painter, musician, or composer, movie maker, whatever it is. Go and find somebody who's not on a label, who's not on some big production unit. Go and find somebody new to follow and to study. And let's try to starve out these Lou Taylor types. Because if we just stop tuning in, we can't not talk about them. But if we stop tuning into them, we can starve them out. So that's going to be it. I will be back next week with it's a very tragic episode, but it's going to be a little bit of a breather. I need a break from the series before we get into the big series. It will not be the psychedelic episode next time, but we'll be on the edge of that. And then I'm going to get into a big series on this psychedelic revolution and Stanley Owsley and Melissa Cargill and Roni Gisson / Stanley and all of these people in a series that will be coming up a little bit later this summer, but you'll just have to wait and see. As always, if you want a deeper peek into all of this twisted Hollywood nonsense, or you want to fall down another rabbit hole with the psychedelic movement stuff, which I'm currently deep diving on my Patreon, join me over there. Join me over on Patreon. You get bonus episodes, early releases, and a whole lot more. And you can get all of that at patreon.com/scandalqueens. If you're into more psychology, you want more of a psychological flex, head over to thereallybjohnson.substack.com, where I post weekly guides, articles, and essays on the human psyche, narcissism, families, relationships, you name it. And for everything else, you got to make sure you're following me on all the socials at The Real E.B. Johnson, literally everywhere, nothing else. No nines, no like weird things, just at The Real E.B. Johnson. If it's not that, it's not me. And if you're feeling really froggy, don't forget to leave a 5-star review. Just helps me get the podcast out there. It helps bring more opportunities this way. I'm really starting to grow. I'm so grateful. So cool. And anyway, it's really cool. Thank you. I just appreciate everyone for being here and listening, and especially today. I literally couldn't do it without you, and I'm just very, very grateful that you're listening and loving what you hear so far. So until next time, keep your secrets close and your receipts closer. I'll be back next week with another great episode. Stay scandalous, queens. Bye-bye.